Mans, France, June 1964. Two American drivers crossed the finish line fourth overall and first in the GT class, having covered 2,764 miles in 24 hours. Behind them are 9 Ferraris. The car they drove was built in a rented workshop in California by a man who was supposed to be raising chickens in Texas. That man was Carroll Shelby. And Enzo Ferrari had no idea what was coming. Carroll Hall Shelby was born in Leesburg, Texas, in 1923, with a heart condition serious enough to keep him in bed through most of his childhood. Doctors told his family to manage expectations. The kid with the leaky heart valve grew up to win Le Mans. He got there the long way. Army Air Corps flight instructor in World War II, failed chicken farmer. Then, almost by accident, a racing driver. He sat behind the wheel for the first time competitively in 1952 in a hot rod with a Ford Vi-8 under the hood. By 1956, Sports Illustrated had named him Driver of the Year. By 1959, he was standing on the podium at Le Mans in a factory Aston Martin with his co-driver Roy Salvadori, having won the greatest endurance race in the world. He was racing with nitroglycerin tablets under his tongue the whole time. The heart condition that had almost killed him as a child had never gone away. It had just been managed. But in 1960, the management stopped working. At the Los Angeles Times Mirror Grand Prix, Shelby pulled into the pits, sat in the car for a long moment, and told the people standing around him that he was through. His friend Bill Neal was there. He said Shelby looked like death warmed over. He was not wrong. The racing career of one of the most gifted American drivers of his generation ended in a pit lane in California because his heart could not keep up with what the rest of him wanted to do. Most people in that situation go home. Shelby went to work. The idea was almost insultingly simple. Take a lightweight British chassis, stuff an American V8 into it, and see what happened. The British chassis belonged to AC Cars of England, a company that had recently lost its engine supplier and was in the kind of quiet institutional crisis that makes manufacturers willing to talk to Texans with unconventional proposals. The engine came from Ford, who saw in Shelby's pitch a chance to build something that could embarrass the Corvette. Shelby got both on credit. AC Cars shipped a body to Dean Moon's workshop in Santa Fe Springs, California. Ford sent engines. In 1962, Shelby and his crew assembled the first one in about 8 hours. They called it the Cobra. The name came to Shelby in a dream, which is either the most American origin story possible or a very convenient piece of mythology that nobody has ever bothered to disprove. What was not mythology was the performance. The Cobra debuted at the 1962 New York Auto Show alongside the brand-new Corvette Stingray. At its first track appearance, it lapped over 4 seconds faster than the car Ford had specifically built it to beat. The Corvette's engineering team had nothing to say about that because there was nothing to say. The physics were clear. A lightweight British roadster with an American engine had made America's dedicated sports car look slow on its own turf. Shelby was not finished. By 1963, the Cobra had won the SCCA Production National Championship and the United States Road Racing Championship. It had beaten everything America had to offer on American circuits. The question Shelby was now asking was whether it could do the same thing in Europe, against the car that had dominated GT racing for 3 consecutive years. The Ferrari 250 GTO was not just a racing car. It was Enzo Ferrari's institutional argument made physical. The argument was that Italian engineering, Italian craftsmanship, and Italian racing tradition could not be challenged by anyone who had not been doing this for decades. The GTO had a top speed 30 miles per hour, greater than the Cobra Roadster on circuits like Le Mans. The Mulsanne Straight alone would have made the argument for Enzo without his needing to say a word. Shelby understood the problem. The open Cobra Roadster with its tall windscreen was aerodynamically limited to around 160 miles per hour. The GTO was hitting close to 190 on the same straight. You cannot beat a car that runs 30 miles per hour faster on a straight line by being clever in the corners. The gap was too large. So Shelby did something that nobody at his operation expected. He asked a 25-year-old employee named Pete Brock to design an entirely new body. Brock was not a trained aerodynamicist. He was a designer who had worked at General Motors and had ideas about airflow that the conventional racing world had not yet caught up with. His design was a closed fastback coupe built over the existing Cobra chassis, with a low drag coefficient and a tail shape that nobody in racing had seen before. When Brock first showed the concept to Shelby, Shelby was skeptical enough that Brock had to consult an aerodynamics expert from Convair Aircraft just to get the numbers taken seriously. The numbers were real. At Riverside, test driver Ken Miles put the first Daytona Coupe on the track and immediately ran 3.5 seconds faster than his previous best in the open roadster. He called Shelby from the track. Shelby went back into the shop where his crew was waiting, held up the timing slips, and told them they were going to Le Mans with a car of their own and they were going to win. At Le Mans in 1964, the Daytona Coupe hit over 315 kilometers per hour on the Mulsanne Straight. The open roadster that had been limited to 258 had become something that could run with the best cars in Europe on the fastest circuit in the world. Gurney and Bondurant finished fourth overall and first in the GT class, breaking Ferrari's 7-year stranglehold on the category. Enzo Ferrari noticed. What happened next tells you everything about what kind of man Enzo Ferrari was, and everything about what kind of man Carroll Shelby was. Shelby went into the 1964 FIA GT World Championship season with enough Daytona Coupes to mount a serious title challenge. By the time the season reached its final 3 races, the Cobras were leading Ferrari in championship points. The title was within reach. Then Ferrari pulled his factory cars from the season-ending race at Monza and used his political connections to have the event canceled entirely. The season ended with Ferrari ahead by a handful of points. The championship that Shelby had earned on the track was taken away from him in a boardroom. The press quoted Shelby as saying something specific about what he planned to do to Ferrari the following year. Shelby always denied using those exact words, though he was clear enough that he did want to do the thing the words described. In 1965, Ferrari looked at what was coming and made a decision that told the whole story. He withdrew his factory team from the GT class entirely. Rather than race against the Cobras and lose publicly, he stepped aside and let privateers carry his badge. The Daytona Coupes ran through the season without serious factory opposition. Bob Bondurant competed in 10 races and won 7. The final championship points were 90 for Shelby against 71 for Ferrari. The only American make in history to win the FIA GT World Championship did it with 6 hand-built cars, a rented workshop, and an aerodynamic design that a 25-year-old had sketched out because the boss was willing to listen. Ferrari did not congratulate them. The street Cobra that came out of all this racing development was a different proposition from anything that had existed in American performance before. The 427 cubic inch Ford V8 produced 410 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque in the standard configuration. The car weighed around 2,350 pounds. Period testing put the 0 to 60 time at around 4.5 seconds on street tires, with the quarter mile in 12.4 seconds. To understand what those numbers meant in 1965, consider that a Ferrari needed 6 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. The fastest production Ferrari in the world was 2 seconds slower than a car that a Texan had assembled in someone else's workshop using parts he had obtained on credit. Only 260 examples of the 427 Cobra were built between 1965 and 1966. The car was never intended to be a volume seller. It was a racing weapon with license plates. It was also, for a period that lasted roughly 2 decades, the fastest production car in America. Original examples now trade at between $1 and $14 million, depending on specification and history. The Daytona Coupe that actually won the 1965 FIA World Championship sold at auction in 2009 for $7.25 million. At the time, it was the most expensive American car ever sold at public auction. The car that Enzo Ferrari refused to race against in 1965 is worth more today than almost anything he built during the same period. Carroll Shelby died in 2012 at the age of 89. The heart that doctors had managed expectations around in Leesburg, Texas, in 1930 had kept going for nearly 6 more decades after it was supposed to have slowed him down. He outlived Ferrari by 24 years. The Cobra he built with a British chassis, an American engine, and a young designer's aerodynamic sketch remains the only American car to have won the FIA GT World Manufacturers Championship. It beat Ferrari on Ferrari's own circuits, in Ferrari's own series, using Ferrari's own rules. It did it with 6 cars, and when Ferrari saw it coming and chose not to show up, that absence said more about who had won than any trophy could.